Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to replace a gas valve on a tank style water heater. Now this water heater is an A.O. Smith natural draft 40 gallon, but the process will more or less be the same for any type of tank style water heater. Here is the gas control valve that we will be replacing. The reason we're replacing this valve is because the pilot light is not staying lit. Now I already replaced the pilot assembly with a new thermopile, but I still can't get the pilot to stay on. Normally, when you go to light the pilot, you hold this knob down, and once the flame ignites, you wait for the status light. Once the status light starts blinking, you're okay to let go of the knob and the flame should stay on. In my case though, the status light starts blinking, I let go of the knob and the flame goes back out. Let me see if I can get it on video. And you can see the flame inside of there. Okay, so right now I'm holding down the knob, and you can see that my pilot is lit, and my status light is blinking, telling me normal operation. So when I let go of this knob, my flame should stay lit, but it goes out. So here's everything you're going to need to replace your gas valve. Of course, you're going to need your replacement gas valve along with some pipe dope, also known as pipe joint compound. You will need a couple of channel locks or pipe wrenches to work on the gas pipe. You'll need a crescent wrench and a multi-screwdriver. You'll also need a hose and probably a rag. So let's get started with replacing the gas valve. First thing we're going to do is shut off gas to the unit. You can see we've got our gas valve right here, so we'll turn that perpendicular to the line to shut the gas off. Next thing we want to do is shut off the incoming cold water. You can see here's our cold water coming in. We'll follow the line back to our shutoff valve. Same thing as the gas valve, we're going to turn it so that it's perpendicular to the pipe, and we'll know that our water is shut off then. Now if we had a shut off on the hot side, we would turn that off too, but we don't have one, so we're going to have to drain these pipes down. You can see here this water heater serves the second floor apartment in this building, so what we're going to have to do is go up to the second floor, we're in the basement right now, and open up a hot water faucet. That way it breaks the vacuum and allows the water to drain out more easily. So I just went upstairs and opened up the hot water side until it trickled out. Now we're going to come down here and hook up a hose to the drain port on this water heater. And luckily we have a floor drain right here. So we'll just run the hose to there and start draining the tank. So now you're going to grab your screwdriver with a flathead bit on it, and we're going to go ahead and open up this valve by turning counterclockwise. Here you can see I've got my hose hooked up, and it's very long. I only had this long one. Now obviously we need to drain 40 gallons plus whatever other water is in that pipe, so it's probably going to take a while. While the tank is draining, I'm going to start taking apart the gas pipe. Now whenever you're working on gas piping, you always have to start at the union. So what we're going to do is loosen the union, and then from the union backwards we're going to take apart the gas piping. So now that I broke the union, I've got to start taking apart the rest of this section. It's very tight. Anytime you're taking apart gas pipe with a couple of wrenches, you want the wrenches to be facing in opposite directions. That way they're working against each other. Usually just hold one side still and rotate the other side. And then once it gets loose enough, you can do the rest by hand. I'm going to leave this part on for now because this pipe is going to act as our wrench to take off the gas valve. While we're still waiting for this thing to drain, we could start taking apart everything on the underside of this gas valve. So this is your spark igniter. Unplug that. Unplug these two low voltage wires. These can be kind of tough to get out. Just take it slow and wiggle it until they come out. And then here we have our gas supply line and our pilot tubing. So now we're just going to use our crescent wrench here. Adjust it to size, and you're going to use it on this brass nut here and here to remove these two pipes. Once it comes loose, the nut will drop down here, and you can just take the whole thing and pull it down out of the gas valve. We're going to do the same thing with this one. Get those out of the way. I just realized that this dehumidifier back here had a short little 4-foot hose on it. So I went ahead and connected that to my drain and got rid of my 50-foot hose. Hopefully that'll let it drain a little quicker. Looks like it's coming out a little bit faster now. Now, one thing you could do to help it drain faster is open up these unions, let air in from the top. These unions look like they've seen better days, so I'm just going to leave them alone. Alright, this thing is finally done draining. So it should be completely empty, and we have no problem taking the gas valve out. Don't forget to close this valve back up so that when you turn the water back on, you don't flood the place. We're going to use this pipe that we left on here as our leverage to spin the gas valve out of the tank. So you're going to kind of grab the one side with your hand, grab the other side on the pipe, and you're going to spin it counterclockwise. You can see here's our old valve. Before you put the new one in, you want to get all of this insulation. If there's any crud in the threads here, you want to get that out of the way. So I'm just going to use a screwdriver, kind of trying to shove this insulation. Now we have to take this pipe out of our old gas valve so that we can reuse it. So here we've got our new gas valve. And so you always want to check it out and just make sure it looks the same as your old one. In this case, these obviously look like the same thing. Go ahead and take these little plugs out, and we are good to start rebuilding our gas pipe back into here. So we'll take the last piece that we took out here, we'll apply some pipe dope to the threads. Again, make sure that you don't get any inside of the pipe. You want it all on the outside. So once we've done that, start screwing it into our new gas valve body. You should be able to get a good few spins pretty easily with your hand. If it doesn't start spinning easily right away, that means that you're cross-threaded. So you'll need to pull it out and make sure that your pipe is nice and straight up and down going into that opening. Because if it's tilted at all and you force it to twist in, you'll destroy the gas valve. This is just aluminum, so it'll cross-thread really easily. Okay. Once you can't turn it by hand anymore, we'll throw the wrenches on there and get it tightened up. Get it to, that feels about right. And we want to orient that T in the same way that it was before, so we want to make sure it's straight up and down. a little crooked. And that looks pretty good. Now that we have our first pipe in here that we can use to turn the valve, we can go ahead and get this threaded back into the tank here. I'm going to look at the directions and see what it wants me to do with these threads. I don't know if it wants me to put pipe dope or Teflon tape or both, so I'm going to take a look at that. Okay, the manual doesn't say anything about putting dope or Teflon tape on here. It just says to screw it right in. So I'm going to put a little bit of dope on these threads here, just so I have a little bit of lubrication. Maybe this Teflon stuff that comes pre-pasted on here is enough, but this will help twist it in. Okay, now we're ready to put our control valve back into this port on the water heater. Same way we took it off, we're going to use this handle as some leverage to spin it. And these things are fragile, so once it starts getting tight, you got to kind of plan ahead and know when your last turn is going to be, because you need to end with it upright. So you don't want to get here and then it gets too tight to make the next full revolution. So we'll start turning this in here. And same as before, it should spin really easily for the first few spins. If it doesn't, if you put it in there and it's hard to spin right away, then that means you're cross-threading it and you need to stop and realign it. Okay, I think I can get one more full turn out of it. This stupid thing gets out of my way. Okay, so that looks good. Looks nice and tight. It looks pretty parallel to the ground here. So we'll call that good. And now we'll go ahead and rebuild the rest of our gas piping. We'll put our drip leg back on and we'll attach it back to the union and tighten it up. So we'll get that on there and that on there to back it up. Feels good and tight. And then if you made a mess with the pipe dope, just wipe it up with a rag. So you really want to make sure you don't get any dope inside the pipe, because that can cause problems. So we'll go ahead, screw it in there. Now we'll put our last piece in. We'll thread into the 90 on this side, and then we'll reconnect our union on this side. and spin it into our 90 here. It's a good idea to wear gloves when you do this too, because these threads, I mean these are old fittings, but these threads when they're new can be really sharp. Okay. Try to do this without getting in the way of the camera. You don't want to use really long wrenches either when you're just working on 1/2-inch gas pipe. If I were to be using like a 2-foot long wrench right now, all that leverage would be enough to break the threads on these fittings. So just use the minimum amount that you need. These are just like 12-inch channel locks, and they're enough to get the job done. So now we'll go ahead and reconnect the union here. So line it up as good as we can, and then thread this part on. Once it's hand tight, go ahead and get your wrenches on there. Okay, that's nice and tight. Anytime you're spinning this this big nut on the union, you want to make sure you back it up with another wrench. Because if I was just spinning on this and it wasn't loosening, then I'm going to be screwing up stuff over here and over here. If you're having a wrench go one way, you always want a backup wrench going the other way. We'll go ahead now and attach the gas to the burner and our pilot tube and our wires here, and then we will turn on the gas and inspect for any leaks. So this tank has this flexible gas line here. Some of them you'll see it will have like a rigid pipe. In that case, you'll have to take off this burner door to be able to shift it down and get it in there. But with this flexible pipe, you don't have to. So we'll go ahead and get this up in here. Push it all the way in until it's seated at the end. Make sure you're not caught on any of the threads in there. And then you're going to raise up the nut here and screw it into place. Go ahead and get this one in too. Sometimes if the end of this tubing is bent up, it's hard to get it to go in there straight. See, you want to just kind of bend this tubing to be as perfectly straight as possible. These fittings are a little different than your gas pipe fittings. These are flared at the end, so they'll rotate and then kind of come to an abrupt stop once they're all the way seated. Whereas with the gas pipe, you kind of just have to feel it out because they're tapered at the threads, and so it'll just progressively get tighter and tighter until you can't really turn it anymore. But once with these guys, once this gets seated, once you feel it get real tight, you don't really want to spin it much more past that. That feels about good. This is really tiny and I don't want to break it, so I'll leave it there and I'll check it for leaks, and if it's leaking I'll tighten it up a little more. Okay, that feels good. Okay, now we'll connect our spark ignition cable. Just plugs in like that. We'll connect this guy back into here. And now we'll turn the gas on and we'll check for leaks. First leak check you want to do is just smell near all the fittings and see if you can smell the gas. Usually if you can't smell it, you're pretty good. Okay, now that everything's put back together, and I checked for leaks using some soap on my joints here, they're all good. I'm going to fill this tank back up with water. We don't want to turn it on until we fill it back up, so we'll do that first. Go ahead and... So now that this is filling up, I'm going to go upstairs and wait for water to start coming out of the faucets. Once it comes out, I know that the whole plumbing system is filled back up and we can come back down and turn the water heater back on. Now that our plumbing system is full, I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing on and see if the pilot stays lit. It might take a while on the first try after reconnecting it because these lines are all full of air. Alright, you can see our pilot light lit. Still holding down the button here until that status light comes on. And I just heard a click and now you see that light is just giving me one steady blink. So I should be good to take my thumb off the knob here and that light will stay lit. So I'll take it off in 3, 2, 1. And our pilot is staying lit, which is good, because that's where it was dying out with the last valve. Gas valve is set to pilot mode. So we'll go ahead and turn it to, we'll set it to B, and we should hear it come on. Now it's going to take a while for this tank to heat back up. You know, it's 40 gallons of water in there, so it just takes a little bit of time. It's not a bad idea to set it to a low setting, wait for it to heat up, and make sure that the gas valve kicks off once it reaches its set temperature. We got this tank back up and running. It's working on getting itself up to temperature right now. And that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching.